It's self-managed now. In Brazil, the MST, Landless Workers Movement, has occupied and distributed land for 150,000 families since 1984 in a country with the worst concentrations of land in the world. Yeah.
Can I interrupt just briefly to say I've approached you without asking with the camera. Does anybody mind the camera? Okay, alright. That's why I thought, I'm sorry I didn't ask before I turned it on.
No, you've got to check first. But... Okay,
Do you mind if I turn it on?
I've asked Dave to film some of the workshops, so that, like the basic guide to squatting and a few other things like that, so that we can put it on like a website, so that people can have that knowledge again rather than just doing it for 10-15 people at a workshop. We can say there's a whole squatting workshop, there's a climate solutions workshop, whatever. But obviously it's up to the people doing it whether they feel comfortable being filmed or not. So you're not into it.
I'd say if one person doesn't, then we have to.
Well, no, I don't mind.
I mean, like,
I don't really mind that much. Like, it's just
no, anybody who
it
says
makes me then think, oh God, what do I look like? I'm like, I have to think about that. Do you know what I mean? Like,
anybody who feels in any way nervous just says so, and I just don't point the camera at them. That's
yeah,
all.
no, it's fine. Like,
They're just kind of having a basic workshop.
just don't point it right at me.
I'm glad I didn't know you were pointing at me.
I'll go and turn it off again.
So who wants to do the next stage and time and place?
70s.
You or
I'll do the 70s then.
Yeah.
So read it out.
Yeah.
Italian Centri Sociali, social centres, 1970s. Italy's occupied self-managed social centres, CSOAs, emerged during the social unrest and economic crisis of the 1970s. Founded by a youth movement seeking to challenge a lack of housing, services and casualised labour, but rejecting both capitalist work and socialist parties. At the same time, conventional political meeting spaces were being wiped out as workplaces, schools and universities closed. Enter the CSOAs. Taking over unused buildings, a network of autonomous cultural and political gathering spaces have been created that have since become highs for experimentation with self-management, independent cultural production of music, zines and pirate TV, and radical social services. Despite many of these social centres dying out in the late 1970s and 80s, some of today's autonomous spaces take their cue from the CSOAs. They've got them Centro Social in Italy and Spain a bit, and visit a few, some really good ones in Milan and Turin, big ones in Rome, Forte Predestino or something I think it's called.
Yeah, I was there recently.
Right. Yeah, what was that like? Really big.
They like have their own economy almost.
Like exchange system, credit points, something.
Are they mostly squatted? Yeah, some of them have, in Rome, they have a deal with the government and the local authorities. So they kind of say, oh, you can stay, but make sure you can cut the grass and stuff.
And as one of those that is old enough to have actually had the pleasure of visiting Christiania in its early days, wasn't Christiania one of the first in the sequence?
In some ways, yeah. It was kind of more than just one centre. It was
a whole area in Copenhagen.
I think it was an old army barracks or base or something.
Sorry, the reason I'm raising it is that's actually been under attack.
At the moment,
recently.
Very recently.
Yeah,
they have actually decided finally to close it down. So
trying to.
So the people are fighting that right now.
It'd be good to have more. There's a place in northern Yugoslavia called, is it Metelkova? Something like that. Similar to Christiana, but northern Yugoslavia. Slovenia, I think, Metelkova. But Europe, I mean, travelling over Europe 7-8 years ago, it does seem to have a very strong squatted and social centre network, really. And we've been doing it in this country in similar ways. There's a long tradition of squatted centres and stuff. I think it's become more of a recent thing, though. I think since we've been going out to more of the international protests in the last 7, 8, 9 years, of people seeing the social centres out there and coming back here and going, yeah, let's really focus it to do some social workshops and activist stuff in empty buildings.
Yeah, it's good to know that there's so much. I mean, it's in people to want to live in this way, because
Yeah, meet together,
an
community.
unnatural thing. It's part of life.
Sharing resources.
It's an unnatural thing to live in the way that most people are living, which is why everyone's so mentally ill, emotionally ill, stressed out, physically ill even, like it all comes from the same place.
Divided into kind of apartments, being separated. Yeah.
So where should we go next in time?
I think the 1980s.
We're going to jump.
To the 80s?
Yeah.
Can we go to the noughties? Or we got to go and see
Okay,
those?
that was mine.
The European squatters.
Okay, European squatters in the 1980s. In the 1980s, the European squatting scene was a mass movement with some 3,500 squatted houses in the Netherlands, 9,000 in Berlin, and 31,000 in London. Motives varied from decent housing, challenging corporate takeover, and the desire to set up self-managed social centres in gaps left by the crumbling welfare state. It is also reflected as a wider rejection. It also reflected a wider rejection of life, work and politics under capitalism. Despite a decline in squatting, some spaces survived to become almost self-governing cities, such as Christiania in Copenhagen, aka Freetown, and after it declared itself independent of the Danish state. So that was in the 1980s. That's what happened there.
It's really interesting though that how many squats there were in London. 31,000.
31,000 is a lot.
Wait, how do they count them?
I was wondering how they
One big old city.
I heard that people squatted them because they heard from the census, like they had friends in the council that told them that those buildings were empty.
Oh right, so that's how they found out that they were empty.
Probably most places that are empty are squatted.
Well, in the County Club there's an empty houses book that people write in whenever they see.
Really? So that's a really good idea.
Maybe
It's not very active at the moment, but it's a really good idea. Like it should be.
In Bristol there's Bristol Housing Action Movement, BAM, and they do like kind of squatting stuff, and maybe they've got a book like that. I'm not sure. It sounds like a really good idea.
There used to be squatting like estate agent thing in Brighton.
Yeah,
Years ago, I heard of it when I first got there, but I was never part of it. Back when the Anarchist Teapot was a fixed space as well.
Yeah.
There's
Read it
the
in the Snooze annual.
AS, they have a board, the association, the advisory service for squatters.
They're here, aren't they?
Yeah,
over there.
yeah. There's a board there which works kind of like an estate agent, but they were really just kind of starting that last year. And then they were organising meetings as well of people who wanted to squat and maybe kind of get a place together.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's going on in that stuff.
That thing that I went to.
Okay. Where to next?
More 80s, anarchy in the UK, punk Dublin autonomy, 70s.
Sure, wasn't it?
Okay. In 1980s Britain, a heady mix of punk, anarchism and high unemployment led to an intense period of creativity as unemployed claimants tried to take back control of their lives against Thatcher's attack on working class people, the betrayal of the Labour Party and trade unions, and the rise of fascist activity. Inspired by the anger and energy of the punk scene and brought together through the unemployed claimants' unions, dozens of clubs opened up, such as the Autonomy Centre in Wapping and the 1 in 12 club in Bradford. People got together to put on gigs, make signs, music, organise benefit advice and get to know each other. So more stuff in the 80s. Must have been kind of spurred on by the squatting scene must have been really linked to.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because all you hear about in the media is just like, the Sex Pistols, beering it up punks, and when you read people in the street, they don't really portray it as being a political force behind stuff.
Thatcher's Britain. Yeah. Maggie Thatcher and all that. I hear about that. I mean, I don't know if I can't just about remember it.
Remember it, yeah.
Remember what's telly? Neil Kinnock.
What were they doing?
Variety.
And all that. That's just like a long time ago, really. It's just about remembering.
So how do we all feel about the changes that have or haven't taken place in the time that we've been around to be observing?
I think now that the social centre movement is growing, although squatting's in decline. I think there's sort of more of a social centre movement, although I think at the moment most of our social centres in the UK aren't squatted and they're rented, which is an interesting point.
But then the law has changed as well, new laws have come in that time and things have changed, so maybe it's more difficult now.
In Scotland it's difficult, isn't it?
In Scotland, yeah, it's impossible, but in the rest of the UK, I don't think the laws have changed at all. I think they tried to change the law a few years ago and it didn't work. That's what I've been told anyway by people that I don't really know much about it. My grasp of governmental politics is pretty poor, to be fair, but it seems to me the only thing that's changed with Thatcherite days is people are less angry about it in general. And
Because you have the introduction of the Criminal Justice Bill, it was in '94, and then in more recent times there's the stop and search powers and stuff like that. So just to clamp down on people's kind of liberty.
But it's this thing about terrorism. They're just like, it's the excuse for everything now. Like, oh, there's this terrorist threat, therefore we have to check everything about you. And people are going, oh yeah, that makes me feel really safe actually. And it's like, what? How can that possibly be?
The next one is moving on to the 90s.
Travellers and The traveller community, long criminalised as deviants for their nomadic way of life, know well the importance of who controls space. Clashes with police over the right to live and party and violent evictions were especially frequent in the UK in the 1990s. The rave and free party scene which swept across the Western world at this time played a crucial role, squatting old warehouses and fields to self-managed music festivals and at the same time challenged the corporate control of music and lifestyles. Laws like the 1995 Criminal Justice Act quickly legislated this movement out of existence, leading many to seek out freer spaces in southern Europe. Many others stayed and fought, such as the Exodus Collective in Luton, who helped to regenerate their local community. I wouldn't say it's been put out of existence at all. Massively active in Britain.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and free parties and warehouse parties and stuff. Really active in Brighton. Every weekend and stuff. Several every weekend.
Really? I think it's becoming more active again in Bristol. It kind of really died for a while.
Oh, he's here, he's arrived, isn't he?
Really died after. But did you go to that party where they put it after Sturt Beach?
No, I didn't go parties there.
Yeah.
Fucking horrible next to the power station.
Oh, is that where it is?
White marquee.
Wake up like from your party.
There's a
Power station right next to it. Anyway, that's another.
I think in different areas the movement kind of goes up and down as the police use more violence and then like it's run out of money.
They're really into illegal eviction squats. They just bogus reasons why they need everyone to leave and around and everyone they try and nip with the stealing up prison and stuff like that, and they just hold them overnight so that anyone at the house and they can close the house up in their house.
The police are always trying to find party organisers, you know, that's one of the big things, to clamp down on the organisers, that's what they do. I'm just going to go see some.
Okay.
Okay. Having a little break.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolute uproar all around
It's funny how when you try to pin down history and say this is how it is. When he wrote that, it was for him. That was my house. I was like,
Will they run at 12 volts? They're 240 volts. I've got how
Sustainable
turkey is just, this is kids, next one round is sustainable turkey.
Why are you pointing them that way?
I'm telling them what they wanted to know.
Yeah, we'll find out a lot of information, including that. We'll remember your...
We're going to find some sustainable tech.
We'd like
I mean, you get people coming through, don't you? So,
We'll come back with power.
Yeah, what we think is probably happened is because we're quite late, it's probably covered with tents, which is fine because like all space is fairly flexible. And with V3 power, we are, which is because the power of the wind is its velocity cube. Brilliant. Yeah.
Here and then made a copy before they go down.
The battles of Newbury and Twyford
I'm sorry.
are famous for their resistance networks and promotion of living self-managed, ecological alternatives to the growth machine. A recent camp for climate action outside the Drax power station in the UK highlighted workable solutions to climate change. Peace camps such as at Green and Common have confronted the war machine at its front door. More recently, No Borders camps have taken place on immigration borders under the banner "No one is illegal." During the summits of the G8, IMF and World Bank, large convergence centres and activist villages have been set up under names such as Intergalactica and Horizon. Has anyone been to those?
No, I've heard a lot about them. I've started getting quite into the No Borders thing lately. I've been to one of their workshops and I went on one of the marches. Yeah, it's such a great thing to do. It might be my plan for the winter. There's a Smash Edo camp, so you know.
Oh, is there? I went to the Horizon. That was really nice.
I haven't even heard about that.
That was the one at the G8 in Scotland.
Oh, right.
In Stirling. Yeah, it was really busy.
Was that one of the neighbourhoods?
No, it was called Horizon. That was the convergence centre. It was called.
The whole convergence centre.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to get closer to get the sound better. That's why I bring the...
Because the convergence centres that have started up, I'm not sure exactly how, like, where the ideas came from, but the ideas came from like ways of organising where to get a huge camp having like consensus decision making in one big like tent, this is going to be ridiculously hard. So there's this idea of spokes councils. So what happens is you have different affinity groups and groups, and one person represents them at a bigger meeting. And then if there's a decision to be made, they run backwards and forwards to their group, and then they tell each other what's going on. Or they can all stay in the same space, but it just saves time and energy and gets decisions made. So they go back to the smaller group and then whatever. So it's a bit more, it's a bit like a kind of like bees, I suppose, going out to their flowers and coming back to the hive, whatever. And that's what happened at the climate camp, is you have neighbourhoods. So you go with the neighbourhood you feel more affinity with, or the geographical location you come from. And so we had the west side, so it was made up of like Bristol, Birmingham, Liverpool. It was west of anywhere really. We had quite a large kitchen, and so each neighbourhood is around a kitchen. So it's a bit like here really, like each area's got its own kitchen, and then there's like central things that happen together.
So is this like the kitchen for like the campaigns area?
No, I suppose it is. This is like the hub, yeah.
I think it's more kitchen for Earth Circus rather than for the whole campaign field.
Oh, right, yeah.
Well, there's a few different kitchens sort of competing.
Is there?
If it's, yeah, sort of thing. Yeah, no, God, loving that capitalism, eh? But this is the central area. This is the central dome. Circus has been asked by the festival to promote the campaigns.
Ah, right. So it's like hosting.
Yeah, hosting. That's it. It's hosting. So this is like the hosting dome.
Right. Oh, it's a lovely dome.
It looks like.
What was my point? Oh yeah, autonomous living.
Being organised.
About organising, because that's what the next part of it is, isn't it? It's about looking at like what are like the central, like the things that the bedrocks of autonomous principles. They like hold us together, because otherwise if you're just like, oh, what's going on, or is it this or is it that, people aren't really that sure. So we've got a bag of principles.
I just happen to have some here.
There's some sellotape in there as well.
Do you reckon Smashido people will be able to find us? I said just on the right as you come in the gate. Send me a text.
I think it's just the other way is like walking up a smelly road, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the idea is that you pick a principle. Well, you don't pick one, you just pick that bag. And,
Great bag.
And this is the cocktail party.
Hold on, that one, that one. That one, definitely.
It's the same.
Like a principle.
Leo, have a principle.
Values?
Like a principle. Like a principle.
I'll have a principle too.
I'll have one too. And
Can you read it for me?
the aim of this game is to introduce yourself to everybody as quickly as possible and tell everyone what your principle is.
But my principal has a they at the beginning of it. Who's they?
Yeah, a lot of them
Who are they?
Oh, this is
how they're
this is what social
Give us an
centres and
example.
autonomous spaces
This is
are
just,
like.
and some,
They tend to be like this. They tend to be like that.
Okay.
and it's just some principles. It's not like the hard and fast rules. Yeah, or the only ones. Okay. So, should we all pretend we're a cocktail party?
Want to?
You get one.
Do we want to get up and run around?
Happy. We could just discuss our principles. Okay. My principle is that people volunteer and don't normally get paid, which I think is really important. Although I've heard that there is one social centre that get. Well, they get they have a cleaner, as far as I know, and pay the cleaners.
What?
And the cleaners aren't part of their collective. They've just worked out to run.
Is cleaning beneath them? Why do they not do it themselves?
I think it must be that they haven't got enough time.
Cowley Club's got a cleaning team.
We have
And they've got a deep cleaning team also.
Deep cleaning team, really.
Deep cleaning is known to the enthusiasts.
Yeah.
It says on the thing as deep cleaning, and you can sign off and go.
I think it's like a big problem that most social centres must face. I know that Clovelly has a real hard time with keeping it clean, and we haven't wrote it, but like people just forget. Like I forgot my turn, which was yesterday.
I think it's because these are people that have, their way of helping out is they volunteer to clean the place, because I guess they feel comfortable doing that, like they don't like cooking or working in a bar or whatever,
it's something
so
that
they're
you
like,
can
oh,
do,
go and
isn't
clean.
it? And it will
So I think when it's someone's job to clean and not just their turn to clean, it's probably more efficient.
Yeah, I think it's a good way. Yeah, it's probably a good way of opening it up to other people that maybe wouldn't normally volunteer, but then offering people, how you can come and clean the toilets.
And it's like, what do you get for your volunteering? You get space, you get to like practice your ideas, you get cake. If you cook a cake, and you know you get your food.
You get to meet other people.
You get
as
to
well.
meet new
Solidarity
people.
is a big thing, isn't it? Like,
You get to
not being
network.
told
There's
you're complete
opportunities to go in different directions. You know, you get to meet friends, which is important.
and learning, like education,
And
educating each other about different things that are going on in the world, because everyone specialises in different sort of political areas, don't they? And it's really hard to find out about that sort of thing.
People
You
coming
can't
from
trust the media, can you?
different backgrounds and everything.
And it changes it if you have to get paid. So like, right, for this hour I will be being paid, and then I leave.
I've got a workable version. I performed it last night.
I don't think I would work there if it was a paid thing, because I mean you've got to apply then and all that sort of governance, haven't you? And then it's all about if you're good enough or not. And no, you don't
Depends
want to do
what it is they're trying to accomplish at the end of the day. Sometimes, you know, they're like setting themselves up not as a social centre but as a sort of a proper charity, and they're really kind of like making a go of it and trying to give people jobs.
that. That's
and
a totally different thing though, because if you're a charity you can't do political stuff.
Yeah, that's true. There is issues.
And social centres, the point is, well, as far as I'm concerned, it's the mutual aid and cooperation thing, which isn't about money at all. It's totally different.
Do we have another principle?
Yeah, another principle.
I'll read David's principle.
Thank you.
It's that social centres challenge the gentrification and privatisation of cities. If anyone wants to expand on that for me?
Especially with squatting ones. I don't know about Cantab's rented, I don't know what was Bristol.
We had a mortgage, it was squatted.
Oh, sorry, yeah, we bought
it for like a very small amount, and now we've paid off the mortgage.
Oh, so right, it's you, ain't it? Wow, that's
ours.
great. We've got like, I think we've got 10 years left on our mortgage.
Yeah. Which isn't especially long time, like in mortgage aspects, is it? Like you could easily go 10 years.
10 or 20 years. Yeah, but it's still.
What sort of advantage do you think it gives you to actually have been able to purchase the building rather than squatting, which means you have to then move on whenever the building comes to an end?
It gives you stability in a place that people will know they can come regularly and not be like, oh, is it going to be there next month or not? And oh, should we bother doing this because we don't know if we're going to be there next month? Or should we do this flyer that covers us for the next 3 months? Because is it worth it or not? It's good stability.
Socially acceptable to people that otherwise might be afraid of the idea of the place being squatted. People that don't normally come to places like that. Yeah, to know that it's...
I think it's a really interesting topic though, squatting or not squatting. So it's kind of intrinsic to the social centre scene, and that's kind of how it started, and then to the point where you get mortgages and start buying it. That's really buying into the system that was supposed to be there and resisting.
It is a really difficult balance, isn't it?
I think it still challenges to open up that whole gentrification thing. It's that in Easton where we live, we have a vegetarian cafe, which is like a vegan cafe called, I'm not going to say what it's called, but it's really good. It's really nice food, but it costs like £8 for a meal, and like you have to have a lot of money to enter, and a lot of the people who live in the area don't have that much money to pay for like a starter for £8. It's just like outrageous. So that's kind of like the idea of like it's sort of like creeping in, and like it's all really really nice and really expensive and la la la, and maybe I'm using that example as a bad thing, but our spaces are becoming gentrified. Like places that belong to the workers, like docks, are now turning into these huge, like gated communities, where people like often don't have their own community because they work really hard in the city, and then they come and stay in these lovely flats.
That's back to the local people are unable to purchase property. The people who have family there and are there for generations are unable to purchase property in that area, and so they have to move out, which is the problem with these gated developments. I mean, really, I think there is a question of accessibility as well. If you purchase or you squat a building, there may be problems with health and safety, or say you want disabled access and all these different things. If you were to purchase a building from a legal standpoint, I think it would be easier to get support from other agencies as well. So I think there is something to there's a conversation to be had. Perhaps we're having it.
A supplementary question is then how. The key point I felt in the statement earlier was that the price for that purchase was very low. That isn't always possible. What advice would we have on how one can achieve that? There is an implicit something that hasn't been brought out, which is somebody somewhere does own that land and is giving the group a break by making that sale for, in a sense, a peppercorn sale, which is another way of gifting, another way in which local authorities could gift, another way in which private individuals could gift, which I would imagine the movement is in very bad need of. So I thought I'd give it a plug. Excuse me, butting in from behind the camera with that
thought. Getting local authorities to gift aid their communities.
Have you had, has there been much experience of stuff like local authorities actually helping? Rather than, oh, you're a radical group and...
But it's against authority, isn't it?
I think there's trusts, there's various trusts which have granted,
well, there's a radical roots thing, isn't there?
And there's a few societies around which are helping people.
Are there any particular ones we want to mention, or would we rather not mention names?
And I'm familiar with a few in the East End of London.
Okay.
A few.
So we're talking about localised rather than nationalised?
Yes, yeah, that's right. Yeah, sort of social development organisations.
Presumably different areas in London have different activities and groups.
You know, quite a few, yeah.
She's got a principle then up their sleeve.
I have a principle. Encouraging people to organise their own lives without politicians or bosses.
I think it's a really good part of social centres to get people that wouldn't normally think, like, oh, I can do this myself, or I have a group of mates, we could run this vegan cafe for the day. And people, I don't know, it kind of gets it back into your head that, oh, I can do that, I don't need someone else to tell me how to do it, or to give me the money to let me do it.
We recently had a 3-day punk and do-it-yourself workshop festival at the Character Between the Lines. Which was all like do-it-yourself health, bike maintenance, and talks about relationships and activism, like climate change, and like all these different things. And like it was all about that basically. And it was really good because it appealed to kind of quite young, punky kind of kids, you know, like not young kids, like older kids, adults, who were kind of like, you know, kind of fashion punks. But they were kind of getting into it that way. I think it's quite nice because it was people that hadn't really thought about things like that before, and they were coming to the punk gigs and going to the workshops. And
kind of making the links between punk and politics.
Yeah.
Because they're inspired by what it looks like, the aesthetics and everything.
Yeah, and they're like, fuck the system, like without thinking behind it sometimes.
Yeah.
And you get
why should we fuck the system?
Exactly.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I have this one. They offer a place for free expression and creativity outside the shackles of capitalist society.
Say again?
Creativity outside the shackles of capitalist society, outside of the glamorized capitalist society.
Glamorized.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Well, I think that society glamorizes many things, and that creates disharmony, because when you look at an image, you're sort of thinking to yourself, well, cool, what would it like to be that person? And advertising is designed to make us not unhappy with society, but unhappy with our place within it. Yeah, and so it tends to use glamour to do this by glamorizing certain things and activities and people and whatnot. And in a social centre, you move outside of that world. You know, you don't really you're not in it really. So you're a bit freer, and you start thinking about other things. I think it does. A great place for free expression and creativity. Yeah, absolutely.
The really ironic thing is society will glamorise even things like that aren't a part of it, like punks and travellers, but it will take away all the substance and kind of pretend it's this thing which it isn't at all, and take away all the meaning behind it. Oh wow, yeah, this is, you know, those crazy kids over there, like, you know, look what they're doing, and how can just be completely...
Really, it's just to make money. You know, it's just like, say you want this, and then it'll be alright.
You still have your job though.
Yeah, people have a desire to be wild and to kick off, and so it's just bread and circus. It's like, what do the people need? How are we going to keep them under control, make them work for us and dig resources so we can get our gold and all our own bullshit? So DIY culture has to continue to keep reminding itself why it's there and what it's doing, otherwise it just becomes another commodity for people to go and be wild and slightly free.
I would say at work I find it, you can have free expression but limited, you know what I mean? Conversation is very limited to football most of the time. To go in social centres, you can't guarantee that everyone's going to be sound and appreciate your point of view, but usually expect that you won't get slagged off for expressing how you feel. You get a better conversation out of strangers. You know, there's a more common ground.
That's really interesting. I find people are always talking about football when they actually have a rest and they're not working. They're talking about football because they know that it's a language that they can both understand. It's like, why don't we just learn a new language?
Yeah. The weather of today.
Totally.
The weather, yeah.
I don't know anyone that talks about football, like, frankly.
I do.
I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do when I'm confronted with it. Like, it's like I'm supposed to start talking about fashion or makeup or, you know.
Yeah, girls talk about fashion.
They don't talk about that
boys
either.
talk about
But could climate change become the football of the next generation? The kids that came.
Perhaps it could.
Let's hope
It is getting very fashionable, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's weather again, isn't it?
Well, like, so when's the next forest fire? No, but you mean
But in the concept of sustainability, there is a whole game of movements and tackles and fouls that can be performed and shortcuts can be taken. And
like, buy this carbon offset. We'll burn loads here, you don't burn any, okay, we're going to buy what you don't burn off you. And like, that's really going to stop the earth burning. Anyway.
Any more
One last one, It's, there are no secret or central communities and anyone is free to participate. Again, I think that's kind of what I was just saying. I think you feel really sort of welcome at most community centres and
I don't know.
social centres. No?
I think they're really intimidating places to walk into sometimes.
Well, when I find myself alone sometimes I do feel a bit intimidated if I don't know people, but normally it's quite easy to pick up on a conversation with other people. Everyone's talking politics most of the time.
Yeah, I think that's it, isn't it? I think a lot of people don't like that because they don't like to be confronted with what they're doing wrong because it makes them feel uncomfortable and that all gets projected. Before I went to the Cali Club, the reason I didn't go for like 3 years or something was because everyone told me, oh, it's really cliquey, like, you know, everyone's really political and if you're not political enough they won't talk to you and it's really rah rah rah. As soon as I went in there, everyone was falling over themselves to say hello to me, to meet me, to make friends with me, to talk to me. And I didn't feel at all small or, you know, intimidated because I knew less about certain things. I found it really educational and really inspiring and I just, what the fuck? Like, what is this big thing? Like, people still say it.
I think, I don't know if it's a thing with all social centres, but I know Cabelli's got that as well. Like I've heard that Cabelli is called the hippie mafia, and that like it's really hardcore. Like if you haven't got dreadlocks and you'll be spat on, that kind of thing. It's like, what?
Yeah, this woman was moaning at my bloke. He works in this whole food shop, and she went in there and she was going, I went in the Cali Club the other day and, you know, I was the only one without dreadlocks and nobody spoke to me. And he was like, well, did you speak to them? Like, who is they? Like, just because there's some people in there with dreadlocks, they might never have been in there before either. Like, they might have been thinking that you're part of the Cali Club and they never speak to them.
They might also be captured.
Highly valued.
They offer alternatives to consumer society, mindless wage labour, expensive entertainment and rip-off goods and services.
Yeah. It's a really nice break.
We covered that.
Where else can you get a big plate of vegan food for £2.50 and watch a band for whatever you're happy to donate?
And then wash up your own plate.
No, don't even have to do that.
No, you
don't have to deal if you do the washing up.
There's been a lot of that lately. People come in, haven't got any money, but I'll do your washing up.
Yeah, that's really good as well. Like I can always go down there like for a roast if I haven't got any money and just do the washing up for a couple of hours.
There's loads of food. There's abundance of food.
Yeah.
Where we just don't share it. And I feel like I'm being a bit
I've got
evangelical.
two bags full of food in my tent that I found in the bins at Small World, and Small World's only 500 people. Because I was doing the rubbish there, I was doing the recycling, and I found all these cans of food. There's like totally fine sealed vegetables and a loaf of organic bread, completely unopened, like days and days left on it, just in the bin. Believe it. And this is like a really small hippie festival. With people just like, oh, we didn't eat this.
Oh, we don't want to take it home.
It's not like there's another 400 hungry people in the field or anything.
Just offer it to people.
Sealed orange juice. Rum.
Really?
They must have been aliens.
It wasn't full, it was only that much, but it was like, that's definitely rum. I smelled it, definitely rum. Someone's got to be very ill to make something that looks like rum.
Yeah.
I left all the whiskey looking things alone because I've done that before.
Sorry. Again, from behind the camera, it also occurred to me that there's a Let's thing, local exchange trading system that I've been active with, and it sounds like a centre that you can go and donate your particular, it doesn't have to be a specialism, but there's something that you do that identifies you. Can also become a trading network within the local community that again brings in the community, because I got phoned by a social centre in London saying, you know, we have somebody who's in a council flat and is a bag person who just collects things. That person needs somebody to help them shift all the stuff out so they can start again. Do you know anybody in the neighbourhood? I said, I wish I did know somebody in the neighbourhood that would go in. But making it a relevance to others. Sorry?
What, just to get rid of their stuff?
In this instance, yes.
I just did a free shop in Brighton. Just put loads of stuff outside my house and like free shop and put it on like Free Cycle and all the local e-lists. And like, it was great, like watching out the window, people coming and taking away on my tap. It was great.
Yeah.
Put your principles back in here.
I don't know, I'm quite lacking in principles generally, so I might
hang on to the ones you can find.
Don't worry, no. Should we look at what a social centre actually is?
How to do it.
Yeah.
Oh right, there's loads.
I know. We could just.
I'm feeling a
I
bit
think you should do
flaggy.
something and finish it.
I'm about to run out of tape, so can I ask us to take a breather while I change tapes?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.